It is Wednesday, February 25th. Welcome into a special breaking news edition of Common Sense for the American People. Scott Jennings is here with you on Salem. We are broadcasting live from Washington, D.C. We are at the National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee office, the Ronald Reagan building, and we are reacting today and analyzing President Trump's State of the Union address. Now, if you were watching CNN last night, you know I was in Saginaw, Michigan with my colleague Van Jones. We were at the Old Town Distillery. I want to say thank you to the folks there at Old Town for hosting us. Van and I met with 10 voters in Michigan as part of CNN's live coverage of the State of the Union. And we had some great conversations there in Michigan. So to everyone who made our broadcast last night on CNN possible in Saginaw, and to all of our voters, thank you all very much. But we stayed up all night. We got on a plane early this morning. We got back to Washington, D.C. because today on the show, a special day, we have 8 members of the United States Senate coming by to talk about what they saw in the chamber last night. And our first senator is here from the great state, the free state of Florida, one of the newest senators in Washington, Ashley Moody. Senator Moody, thanks for coming on the Scott Jennings Show.
Great to be with you. Always important to talk about common sense.
Absolutely. Yes. And we heard a lot of common sense from the president, and I think we saw some nonsense from your Democratic colleagues. We're going to talk about that. The president last night made an affirmative case for his administration's policies on a number of fronts, on the economy, on our national strength, and on public safety. Let's start, Ashley, and hear a clip of the president at the State of the Union last night. Here's clip number 1.
Inflation is plummeting. Incomes are rising fast. The roaring economy is roaring like never before. And our enemies are scared. Our military and police are stacked. And America is respected again, perhaps like never before.
President Trump last night, Senator Moody, this was your first State of the Union.
Yes, I was there for the joint address last year, technically not a State of the Union,
right.
But this was my first State of the Union as a United States Senator. It's very exciting.
When you hear the president make the case for the state of our union, and he said the state of our union is strong, do you agree? And sort of what was the vibe in the room?
Absolutely, I agree. I also think he set a very clear direction on where he is working to take this country. It has been a serious hard right turn to get this country back on track. But what I thought he did really well and laid out very clearly for the American people during the last administration, and I can attest to this because as the Attorney General in Florida, I was fighting day in and day out against the Biden administration that was killing this country, both in over-regulation, failure to enforce the law, which, by the way, the Constitution puts on the president a duty to faithfully ensure that the laws are executed. And we just watched as prices skyrocketing. We watched him destroy the economy. We watched him destroy any sense of security of the nation or stability in our communities. And so this president had his work cut out for him coming into office.
Yeah.
I mean, day one, he had to really get to work to undo all of that destruction that was done, and that's the best way to put it. It was destruction. And I thought he laid out, look, we still have work to do, but he laid out what we've been doing this year and put on full display. Do not fall for them when they come in here and start saying affordability and all of these things, because they drove up prices, they put people out of work, they destroyed our energy supply, and now they want to come in the first year I'm in office and start talking about affordability. They did this. He said that very clearly, and I thought that was important to say.
And he also drew a very bright line on the two parties and who is standing up for who. And he made clear it's the Republican Party that's standing up for American citizens, and it's Democrats who spend, frankly, most of their time standing up for illegal aliens, or in the case of last night, not standing up. And this, to me, was the biggest moment of the speech. I want to play it when the president challenged the Democrats to say affirmatively, our highest duty is to protect Americans. He challenged them to stand up for that, and they would not. They would not do it. Let's play cut number 4.
One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
So this gave the president, I think, his longest sustained applause of the night. Were you shocked that not a single Democrat could stand for that?
I wish I could tell you I was shocked. It appalls me. I'm devastated by that. I'm sad for this country that we actually have people in leadership that wouldn't stand up to say that on behalf of you, we the people, we pledge to put your interests first and this country first. I'm saddened by that. But look at what we're battling right now. We're trying to pass legislation called the Save America Act to make sure that only American citizens can vote. And they refuse to help us do that. I just sat through a hearing this morning where the Trump administration has said, okay, we're going to restructure the way we're doing things. The DOJ has said we're going to build a fraud unit to protect the American taxpayer because some of those people are working 2 jobs to support their family. And we asked them to give us money so that we can use it in a way to serve them, to help them, we the people. It's come out that 10% of the money that we outlay as a government goes to bad actors or criminals or waste, fraud, and abuse. 10%. And they want to restructure. So I've had to sit in hearings and listen to the Democrats say, why are we doing this? We've always had fraud. Or this morning I had to hear them say, why would you restructure? Why is it so important now? Well, I have an idea. It's because we have so many people, many of which have come here to this country to take advantage of U.S. citizens and the taxpayers, and we've got to step up our efforts to enforce the laws and protect them. And they're fighting us every step of the way, and who does that benefit?
Senator Ashley Moody is here, our first guest on our State of the Union reaction show, and on the issue of illegal immigration. Another offshoot of this, and you've been dealing with this because you've got a piece of legislation called the Safer Truckers Act. The president last night brought up this issue of illegal aliens getting commercial driver's licenses, and we've seen some tragic accidents. Let's hear the president talk about this in cut number 3.
Many, if not most, illegal aliens do not speak English and cannot read even the most basic road signs as to direction, speed, danger, or location. That's why tonight I'm calling on Congress to pass what we will call the Delilah Law, barring any state from granting commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
Badly injured in one of these accidents in Florida. You all have seen a number of these tragedies on Florida highways. You've been working on this issue. Now you'll be joined up with the president on it.
This is such an important issue. I mean, if you put someone in the driver's seat of one of these large commercial semi-trucks, that can be very dangerous if they cannot read road signs, if they don't have the proper training. We put forward legislation that says if you are a state, you have got to ensure that you're giving those licenses only to people that are here, that they're American citizens, they're here legally, and that they can meet proficiency standards in English so that they can read signs. This seems, again, common sense.
Common sense.
I can't believe we even have to legislate on this. But if states want to be sanctuary states and just dole these licenses out to these large trucks that can be dangerous, like candy, they should have their federal funding yanked. We should not be rewarding these states that cannot comply and won't comply with laws to protect American citizens. It's common sense. I want to make sure it gets done. So does the president.
That voice you're hearing, Senator Ashley Moody of the free state of Florida. This is 2 weeks in a row. We've seen each other, and it's been great to chat with you, and you're doing a great job here as one of the newer senators in the chamber. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Senator Katie Britt of Alabama is going to be here. Senator Moody, thank you for being with us, and we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Great to be with you.
Quick word from our friends at Relief Factor. We've been collecting listener stories. This one's from Keith in Washington, an extremely active guy, college athlete, martial arts instructor. But over time, all this activity took a toll. He was feeling some aches and pains. He had knee pain. He had neck pain. But he tries out Relief Factor. All of a sudden, the pain goes away. He was able to get his black belt, keep teaching his classes. And he said look, it worked for me. We're hearing this in listener and in customer testimonials basically from every state in the country. If you want to try it out and see if it'll work for you as well, I would recommend the 3-week quick start plan. You call them up at 1-800-4RELIEF, or you go to relieffactor.com, say, give me the 3-week quick start plan that Scott Jennings recommends. They'll send it over. I think you'll find the same results that Keith did. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Katie Britt is here from Alabama. This is Common Sense for the American People. I'm Scott Jennings. Stay with us as we react to the President's State of the Union. Hey, it's Scott. I want to talk to you about our friends at Balance of Nature. You can find them, by the way, at balanceofnature.com. They have this thing called the Balance of Nature Whole Health System. These supplements are perfect for a resolution in the new year. It's kind of tough to stick with New Year's resolutions, and that's why Balance of Nature's Whole Health System supplements are one of the easiest ways to do it. They're very versatile. You do 2 scoops of fiber and spice and mix it easily into drinks, and it adds a warm, aromatic depth. You can also open 3 of your fruit supplements and mix the powder into a smoothie, or sprinkle 3 of the veggie supplements over one of the savory dishes that you're having for dinner. It's called Balance of Nature's Whole Health System. These supplements include 47 ingredients of 100% whole fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers, perfect for your daily routine. 50% off if you do it now for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System from our friends at Balance of Nature. Get it at balanceofnature.com.
Straight talk without the bluster. When you positively need the truth, this is where you come. The Scott Jennings Show.
Common Sense for the American People. Wednesday, February 25th. We're broadcasting here from Washington, D.C. We have 8 United States senators coming by the show today. We had Senator Moody from Florida on to start the show. And now, one of the real all-stars taking Washington by storm from Alabama, the great Senator Katie Britt is here. Now, Senator Britt, you're a vice chair of the National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee,
Yes.
so you're one of the senators that's charged with helping the Republicans maintain the majority. What did you hear in the chamber last night from the president that Republican candidates are going to carry forward for the rest of the year?
Look, the president did an outstanding job, not only laying out what has been accomplished, but reminding people where we've been. I mean, Scott, you know better than anybody. You look over the last 4 years that we experienced in the Biden administration, complete and total chaos and destruction, whether it was our border being wide open, the effects of that from fentanyl poisonings to just unfortunate things like the loss of Laken Riley, the loss of Jocelyn Nungary, so much more, to then the economy, to just the lack of respect that people had for us across the globe. Well, President Trump very quickly said, look, we have gotten border crossings down to 0 in the last 9 months, releasing no illegal aliens into our interior. Look at the crime rate. It is down, significantly, 125 years. Look at fentanyl poisonings, down. Everything that he committed to the American people during that campaign, he showed them last night that he had made good on. When it comes to the economy and where we're going, it was a great reminder that Joe Biden left us with a 40-year high inflation.
Right.
And that President Trump, bit by bit, process by process, has been making sure that we make an economy that works for the American people. And that, I think, was evident last night. And I think people are excited to, last but not least, just to have that revitalization of patriotism. You could feel the love of country, the fact that we appreciate the sacrifice of our servicemen and women, and even just the pride and USA, chanting USA for the American team there winning abroad. So it was just an amazing night. And I think it showed people the energy that the president has and how much more he has, that he's excited to do.
Now, you're on the younger side of the chamber, and to understate it a bit. And you're also raising a young family at the same time you're in the United States Senate. I heard several things last night from the president that I think would be appealing to young families. You had the discussion of the Trump accounts, which is an inspired idea.
Huge.
You had the family that had used Trump RX to do IVF treatments because they wanted to start a family. You also had some discussion of the tax relief that was passed last summer. This is going to help young working families. I keyed in on that because, if you're sitting out there watching, what is the government doing for me?
Right.
These are three very specific targeted things for young American families.
Right. Well, the Trump accounts are incredible. They give everyone an opportunity for the American dream. You seed that with $1,000. Once we have these public-private partnerships, and we teach people, obviously, the ability they can continue to give or put in if they want to. Kids at 18 will have an opportunity to either continue their education, to start their own small business, or even be able to buy a home of their own. They can let it keep growing, or at that point in time can move it around. This is amazing, and they also get to see capitalism at work. It's a game changer, not just for our economy, but for opportunity for the next generation. When it comes to what he's done with prescription drugs, okay, you've had everyone who's run for president probably in the last 40 years that has said, I'm going to get these down. He is the first president.
The constant promise.
To actually do it. And when it comes to IVF, look, there has been no more pro-IVF president than Donald Trump. He believes in the creation of life and allowing families to start and to grow. And he's making good on it by saying, I see the cost, and I am going to help bring this down. I have heard from countless people that have said thank you because they have prayed, Scott, for that family of their own. And President Trump has seen them and has made good on the ability to create a foundation for them to actually be able to achieve that. And so I'm so excited about that as well. And you just look at everything, the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and it also can't be understated, too, what we're doing for seniors. I mean, Scott, the no tax on Social Security or the $6,000 deduction, $12,000 for a couple, that is real money for people on a fixed income. And so from
when you think about the tax cuts, the reduction in energy bills and gas prices right now, the fact that mortgage interest rates are going down, I mean, this is effectively a massive tax cut in and of itself, all in. It's a huge relief to American families across the board. I thought the president, frankly, and we have to get to a break here, Senator, but I thought he made an effective case on that. It wasn't platitudes. It was really specific actions.
Nailed it. I know you have to go to a break, but child care is another one that he tackled. It hasn't been tackled since Reagan in 1986, and Donald Trump
he did it,
and I think he's going to continue to do more.
That's Katie Britt from Alabama. Coming up, Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma. I'm Scott Jennings. You're on Salem. Stay with us as we react to the State of the Union.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
And we saw some common sense last night in Washington, D.C. as the president delivered his State of the Union address. We're in Washington today for the Scott Jennings Show, and we have 8 members of the United States Senate coming by. We're about to see Senator number 3 in the form of Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma, and we'll get to him in just one moment. First, a quick word from our friends and partners at Child Help. And if you're a parent or you're a grandparent, you need to hear this message. A lot of kids are being targeted online through these game platforms, social media, and messaging apps. They're not really being adequately protected. These companies profit from screen time and engagement, and often predators slip through the cracks, and it's families that pay the price. Child Help hears from children who are contacted through these games and apps. They're being groomed. They're being manipulated by adults who are pretending to be someone else. Let me tell you a quick story about a boy who called up Child Help. He got on their child abuse hotline, which is something that Child Help runs. He was terrified. He was ashamed. An adult that he met in one of these platforms was demanding photos and demanding that he lie to his parents if he didn't comply. This chat with Child Help may have very well saved this boy's life. That's why Child Help matters. It's why I trust Child Help. It's why I personally donate to Child Help. I encourage you to do the same. $27. You can finance one call to the National Child Abuse Hotline, and that $27 could very well save a life. Go to childhelp.org/Scott or text Child Help to 94878. $27. Help out Child Help. I know them. I trust them. They do good work. They protect our kids. I'd love for you to become part of the Child Help family. Common sense for the American people here on Wednesday, February 25th. We're reacting to the president's State of the Union address last night. In the chamber was Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. Senator, welcome back to the show,
brother.
sir. Yeah.
Thank you.
Glad to see you. I'm just going to start here. You were there. You saw the speech. Give me your top 2 or 3 highlights of things that jumped out to you.
Well, the first thing that jumps out is that I'm number 3 of 8, so I'm not the first or the last. I'm kind of offended, but I'll go past that. Listen, I was texting the president last night, and I said I think it's one of your best speeches you've ever given. I think the best part of it was the recognition of the Medal of Honor recipients. I mean, for myself, I thought, wow, this is powerful. The first one was powerful. And then when he turned over to the gentleman that flew missions in World War II, in Korea, and in Vietnam, over 200 combat missions, 100 years old, and this guy was just beaming with pride, and see Melania put this around his neck. Yeah. I thought that was special, but then the way he closed it, by showing just 2 generations away how young our nation is. Even though we started in 1776, it's not that far apart. And where we came from, what we have went through, where we have been, and where we're going as a nation. I thought he closed it like a left-handed pitcher in the 11th inning of the World Series of Game 7, right? I just thought he just closed it well, and of course he pointed out the hypocrisy of the Democrats. Not willing to stand for really much of anything.
Well, let's talk about that. This night of contrast. I mean, he had a forward-looking message.
Night of contrast. I like that. I haven't heard that before.
But it was, and one of the biggest contrasts was on the issue of crime, public safety, and the president correctly pointed out we have a murder rate 125-year low. Since he came into office, public safety is a priority, and one story that has captivated the nation is this tragic story out of Charlotte, North Carolina. The Ukrainian immigrant Irina Zarutska was stabbed to death on a train in Charlotte by, frankly, someone who should never have been out of jail, but was let out of jail due to soft on crime policies. Let's hear the president, and we'll react to that. This is cut number 12.
Mrs. Zarutska, tonight I promise you we will ensure justice for your magnificent daughter, Irina. How do you not stand? How do you not stand?
So what you heard there, if you're listening on the radio today, you had the president referring to the mother of this poor Ukrainian girl who was stabbed to death, and you had the Republicans standing and clapping for her, and the Democrats in the chamber for her mother, and the Democrats senator did what?
They sat on their hands and did absolutely nothing. Keep in mind, CNN reported, I'm not going to mention the lady's name because she doesn't deserve any recognition. Yesterday, she said the so-called angel mothers, that's referring to the individuals that the president was going to bring as a guest, so-called angel mothers. Now, I'm a father of 6, 3 boys, 3 girls, 3 beautiful blonde girls. And you see this young lady that is sitting on the subway, and her legs are pulled up on the seat. You can tell she's probably a little bit intimidated. And this gentleman sitting behind her, for no reason, there was no conversation, there was no talking, stood up and shoved a blade from her collarbone down into her chest and killed her almost instantly. And the horrific look on her face before she passed away should strike the horror of any individual, any father, any brother, any sister, anybody that's got a heart. I don't care. You should have a heart. And that when you can't stand up and show, I don't want to say remorse, but gratitude, empathy.
Show some compassion.
Yes,
for a family. This is a grieving mother.
That's right, and you can see it on her face. Yeah. She was emotional. So I mean, this is a pretty raw incident that took place, and they just sat there, all because their hatred towards President Trump. Listen, I did not agree with Barack Obama. I did not agree with Joe Biden, but in those circumstances, I would still stand out of respect for the family and what they're going through, and they still couldn't do it. But that's where this Democrat Party is, and that's why this Democrat quite frankly, Scott, has the lowest approval rating since they've measured the parties' faves and unfaves. And it's because of this extreme view where they think that illegals have more rights than those that are actually in this country legally and just trying to live their life on the safe streets that now we have.
Yeah, I think it goes right to the core of their policy views. This case in Charlotte, North Carolina, this person that did the stabbing here, DeCarlos Brown, he should not have been out of jail. This person had been arrested. He was a violent person. He had been arrested many, many times and let out of jail. He should not have been out of jail.
Let out of jail on the no cash bonds that the Democrats put in place.
And one of the people in the middle of this case is the Democrat who's running for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina, the former Governor Roy Cooper. Some cameramen caught up with Roy Cooper in North Carolina the other day and wanted to question him about why he put Irina Zarutska's killer on the list of criminals that he released from jail. Let's take a listen to that in cut number 13.
Governor Cooper, why was DeCarlos Brown on your list for early release? Governor Cooper, could you answer the question, please? Governor Cooper, why was DeCarlos Brown on your list for early release? Governor Cooper, why was DeCarlos Brown on your list for early release?
Now, what you didn't hear there was any answer from Roy Cooper in North Carolina. This whole idea that the Democrats have gone completely soft on crime, and they are adherents to this idea that violent criminal perpetrators must be released onto our streets. I think there's a reason their approval ratings are low, and this case and others like it is part of it.
Well, Governor Roy Cooper is complicit in this case.
Yeah.
And he's complicit in the crime that's taking place in Charlotte right now. The president even mentioned this. What's happened in Charlotte? You think about this guy. He's running to replace Tom Tillis, which is why we've got to make sure that we put Whatley in because if you think he was bad as a governor, and by the way, he was representing a mostly red state. When he gets here and he's surrounded by these individuals like Schiff and Chuck Schumer, and then working with Tlaib and Omar, you think that he's going to stand up to him?
Of course not.
I mean, he didn't stand up to him when he was governor, and he was governor of one, and now he's going to be caucusing with the Democrats. He's not going to have a backbone in that conference any more than he had a backbone as a governor, and he's going to lead these extreme policies and vote on these extreme policies like he did as a governor, but he's going to have more people surrounding him, cheering him on, and it would be horrible for the great state of North Carolina. I've had Whatley in our state. I've been able to do events with Whatley, multiple different events. We're going to be going into North Carolina. There is no way I want to see the great state of North Carolina to be represented by that man, meaning Cooper, up here in Washington D.C. I'm telling you, he'll dive right in with the crazies here in D.C.
That voice you're hearing, Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. We got a minute left here, Senator, and I want to pivot to the great hockey team, the Team USA. The energy in the crowd and in the chamber was coming through the television last night. Let's hear a little bit of that in cut 15, the president welcoming Team USA.
You're going to win again. You're going to win big. You're going to win bigger than ever. And to prove that point, here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in.
Take us inside that moment.
My wife, first of all, met him earlier in the rotunda, and she was a total fangirl. I mean, I have been married to this lady for 28 years, and I think her happiest moment wasn't when I put a ring on her finger. It's when one of the guys put the gold medal around her neck. She said, I felt so patriotic. There's such a good group of men, too. They were so friendly to everybody, talking, taking pictures, letting everybody wear that big old heavy gold medal. But just to see the pride. Now, the Democrats did stand for that. It was neat to see.
You know
the
who
pride.
didn't clap? The journalists. There's this video when the Team USA comes in and the media sitting up there. not really reacting to Team USA.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. You've been around them. You understand that.
I know.
But
Not a great look.
Just the excitement in that room, especially from our party, but even throughout the country. It was such a special moment that this team of a 41st gold medal in 46 years, only our third gold medal ever, and then to have the women's hockey team win against Canada a few days before. It's just all around. And I'm not a big hockey fan, but the idea that I could have played a sport, get in a fight, and just get in a penalty box and be able to come back out, that I may have been maybe fighting mixed martial arts and wrestling was my wrong sport. Maybe I should have lived up north and got on skates.
That's Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma. Senator, thanks for coming by today. Appreciate your reaction to the State of the Union. A quick word from our friends at Patriot Mobile. Listen, if you want to invest your monthly cell phone bill in a company that actually shares your values, there's only one choice. It's Patriot Mobile. You'll have the same or even better service on Patriot Mobile than you get on the big carriers. Switching is not a hassle. You can keep your phone, keep your number. You can upgrade your phone. Here's how you do it. You call 972-PATRIOT or you go to patriotmobile.com/Scott. Patriot Mobile, Christian, conservative values. You pay your bill. They invest in the causes that you care about. This is the company for you, patriotmobile.com/Scott. When we come back, Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas is here to talk a little health care from the State of the Union last night. It's common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings on a special show today reacting to the State of the Union. Stay with us.
You've heard the narratives. Now get the truth. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
A special edition of Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings here on Salem. We're talking to 8 United States senators today about what they saw in the Capitol last night from the President and the State of the Union, and batting cleanup for our number one, Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas is here. Senator, thanks for joining us. I want to talk to you about specifically some of the health care talk that we heard from the President last night. He was talking about Trump RX, his effort to lower prescription drug prices. He talked about the most favored nation agreement. This is in an executive order. He asked the Congress to codify that. Maybe take us inside some of the policy deliberations right now on lowering prescription drug costs for the American people.
Yeah, Scott, I think Trump RX is something that's out there. It's working as we speak. It's nothing we have to wait on. You can do it right now with your local pharmacist. We were out on across the state last week and talked to multiple pharmacists. It's already there. If you're on a regular prescription drug, go to Trump RX and see if it's one of the 30 drugs that are under this most favored nation status. That'll take you to a website. They'll give you a coupon. You give it to your pharmacist. It's that simple. We're going to eliminate the pharmacy benefit managers.
So it's trumprx.gov.
Yep.
You just go in there,
type in the name of your drug,
and if it's in there, you get a coupon. You just hand it to the pharmacist.
Right. So you have to go then to it takes you to a second website, and then you can you'll get a coupon. Maybe take a snapshot of it on your phone, or you may even be able to email it to your pharmacist.
Yeah, and we've heard some stories of people who've saved significant amounts of money on this.
Yeah, 20, 60, 80%. And these are the newest, hottest drugs out there that are some of the most very expensive drugs.
And you've been out traveling all over Kansas recently as part of your duties as senator. Is this a topic that's coming up in a lot of your conversations with voters?
The cost of health care is always a topic. It's a top 3 issue for businesses. Now that we've had the working family tax cuts bill, and the small businesses are going to see so many benefits from that, writing off bonus depreciation, interest deductibility, those types of things. But now they're back to the cost of health care. This is nothing new. The cost of health care up 50% under Joe Biden, and it's our job to come up in here and clean this mess up.
Yeah, I was in Michigan last night, Saginaw, Michigan, and I did a focus group with 10 voters. And there was a guy there, owns a towing company, a 70-year-old family business, and he was telling me about what I hear from small business owners a lot, which is they get a letter every year saying, your health insurance premiums are going up, 13, 14, 15%. They obviously don't feel like their health insurance is getting any better to that same degree. Talk to us about the conversations going on among Senate Republicans right now about how to get this a little more under control.
Yeah, so the president released the Great American Healthcare Plan a month ago. The first point was prescription drug prices and costs. We talked about Trump RX. We're also trying to do what we can to trim back the wings of the pharmacy benefit managers. But I really think that the most important piece of that pie is our bill on transparency, on forcing price tags, forcing every healthcare provider to show you the price of of an MRI, an X-ray, lab work, a surgery, you'd be shocked.
Yeah.
At one hospital compared to another, there may be a 10x difference between the cost at one versus the other.
So we'll let you wrap up the hour here. You listened to the whole speech. It was the longest State of the Union ever given, but the president covered a lot of different topics. Other than the healthcare issue, what are a couple of things that jumped out to you that will resonate back in Kansas?
Well, number one, this is our 250th birthday. Kansans are patriots, so it's great to celebrate our successes. And whether that's that our border's secure or that inflation at least is under control. Last year, real wages go up about $1,400 per job. That wages exceeding the rate of inflation. Rents come down 6 months in a row as well, the lowest in 4 years. So there's lots to celebrate. And I think going forward, the SAFE Act is what's important to me right now. That 80% of Americans think that it's a good idea to show some type of ID when you vote, proof of citizenship when you register to vote. It's a slam dunk. And the question, why is the national media not asking Democrats, why won't you support this bill? And if they don't like it, let's fix it, because 70% of Democrats thinks it's a good idea.
Yeah, there really is no constituency against this. If you look at the polling, overwhelming numbers of Americans, Republicans, Democrats, people of all ideological stripes think it is a good idea to show ID. It's really just the Democratic leadership in Washington. Right. And, look, I mean, there's some connective tissue here. They do everything they can do to keep 20 million illegal immigrants in the country. And they're doing everything they can do to keep people from having to show an ID in our elections. I think most people see the connection here.
Yeah, the only reason that's logical why they would want 20 million people to come in here illegally is they think someday they're going to be voters. It'll change the electoral map, among other things. But we need to hold them accountable here. I would end the filibuster in order to get the SAVE Act across the finish line. We'll see what happens.
You would end it, or you would just change the rules and go to the talking filibuster?
Whichever one it takes. I think this is that important of an issue that whatever it takes to get it across the finish line. But meanwhile, we need to hold them accountable. We need to ask every one of the Democrat senators, why won't you vote yes on this?
That's Senator Roger Marshall of the great state of Kansas. Hour number one's in the books. Hour number two coming up. 4 more senators coming by. We're reacting to the State of the Union here on Salem. Stay with us. It is Wednesday, February 25th. You're listening to a special edition of Common Sense for the American People. I'm Scott Jennings reporting from Washington, D.C. for Salem. Last night here in your nation's capital, President Donald J. Trump delivered the State of the Union address. And during our show today, we are being visited by 8 members of the United States Senate, including one of the newer Senate. Are you the newest?
I'm the newest.
The newest senator in Washington, and he's on the ballot this year in Ohio. You took over for the Vice President, J.D. Vance. Your name is John Husted. Welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Great to be with you.
Glad you're here, and you were in the chamber last night for your first State of the Union. I tell you what, let's listen to the president. I want to get your reaction to this. This is cut number 5. Donald Trump last night talking to the nation.
When I last spoke in this chamber 12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels, a wide open border, horrendous recruitment for military and police, rampant crime at home, and wars and chaos all over the world. But tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before, and a turnaround for the ages. It is indeed a turnaround for the ages.
That seemed to be the branding for the speech, Senator Husted, a turnaround for the ages. Did the president do enough to describe to the American people the deep, deep hole that he found our economy and other aspects of our country in when he took office just a year ago?
Well, he mentioned the fact that we had 9% inflation at the peak under Joe Biden, and now it's less than 3%. That's progress. Do we need to do more? Of course we need to do more. Our jobs are never done in this business, but he made the point, and then he took a victory lap on the things that he's done. The Working Families Tax Cut Plan. If the Democrats had their way, taxes on the average Ohio family would have gone up by $3,500. Instead, they get a $5,000 benefit, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. A married Social Security couple gets a $12,000 tax deduction, $2,200 tax credit for working families. So if you're a mom and dad, you have 2 kids, that's $4,400 more in your pocket to try to spend on the things that are essential for you to get ahead in life. And he did a victory lap on those things. He talked about the changes that we've done, and then also outlined what we need to do for the future. And I think those things are important. But he also talked about crime. He got into that a little bit too. Securing the border has a big deal across the board because it's less fentanyl coming into our country. It's less human trafficking. It's safer streets. And then we've seen crime numbers plummet in every major city in Ohio. They're down by double digits, fewer homicides, less violent crime, fewer overdoses. That's the stuff that has happened in 1 year. In 1 year's time, those things were all done, and they're benefiting the American people.
I want to zoom in on this illegal immigration issue because it does have a lot of offshoots. It impacts overdose deaths, which are down. It impacts, frankly, aspects of our economy as well, which we've seen in a number of states. But the president drew a line last night. I want to play this. The president of the United States dared Democrats to affirm that their number one allegiance is to American citizens, and they wouldn't do it. They absolutely would not do it. Let's listen to this from the president, cut number 4.
One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Now, this generated long, sustained applause, but only from the Republicans. This was your first State of the Union, Senator Husted. Were you shocked that the Democrats sat there on their hands, stone-faced, as the president asked them to stand up and affirm something that, frankly, seems pretty basic and pretty common sense?
Yeah, they failed. If that was a pass-fail question, they definitely failed. I was really stunned that not a single one of them got up and said, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it's stunning to me because that's what we take the oath of office to do, is to serve the American people, not to serve people who came into the country illegally. And particularly when we know that many of the people that came across the border were unvetted or not properly vetted. We have criminals throughout the country that are committing violent crimes. Some of the victims of those violent crimes were in that chamber last night. Think about this. There were little girls who were hit by illegal aliens who had CDLs that they weren't supposed
Delilah,
to have. Yeah, Delilah. We had parents of slain victims of illegal immigrants, and in the presence of those people, the Democrats refused to stand up and say, no, we're going to put the American people first ahead of illegal aliens. It was a pretty stunning moment.
I think stunning in the moment, but also when you think about what will live on in certain speeches, I think that moment is going to be talked about for a long time. I think you're going to see it in campaign ads in races across the country, frankly. The president did give us a healthy dose of economic talk last night. He talked about manufacturing job increases while government jobs are decreasing. Let's hear from the president on that in cut number 16.
More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. Think about that. Any time in the history of our country, more working today. And 100% of all jobs created under my administration have been in the private sector.
This is kind of a key thing, Senator Husted, because under Biden, some of the job production that they always touted, these were government jobs. The government was growing. Under Trump, we have the smallest federal government since 1966, but we are seeing big increases in private sector employment. You're on the ballot in Ohio. I assume this is going to play for your constituents.
Yeah, that's part of the America First agenda. We want more made in America. Ohio is the place where you make things. From the food you eat to the cars you drive to the trucks to the airplanes to the steel, that's what we do in Ohio. And we're seeing more production in those spaces, more investment in those spaces because the president's tough agenda on fair trade. And you're seeing companies like Stellantis invest more, Whirlpool invest more, Cleveland Cliffs, who make steel, invest more. And that means more jobs for people in my state, people across the country. And it is important, not just an economic question of jobs, but it's important for our economic and national security that the things that are important to that economic national security are made in America, whether that's the pharmaceutical supply chain, whether it's rare earth, whether it's chips. More of that needs to be made in America, and we need the capacity and the talent and the know-how to make things, and President Trump is leading that agenda to help reshore more of those jobs to America.
Got about a minute left. That's Senator John Husted from Ohio. You're on the ballot this November. You're running against a retread Democrat named Sherrod Brown. Make the case. Why should Ohio stick with Senator Husted and not return to Senator Sherrod Brown, who represented the state for quite a while?
Look, he's been in public office or running for public office for 52 years, and he's accomplished nothing. His values are aligned with the coastal elites. He voted with Elizabeth Warren 95% of the time, Chuck Schumer 97% of the time, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden 98% of the time. He let China win the trade war. He drove up health insurance costs for the average citizen, and he drove up the national debt, which costs us all. He failed when he was here for the last 32 years. I've been here for one. And during that time, I've cut taxes for working families. We've made the border secure, and we've made the lives of Ohioans a lot safer. And that's just in 1 year. So I don't want to be here for 32. He failed for 32 years. I've shown success in the year that I've been here, and I think the voters of Ohio will reward me for that.
If you're interested in what's going on in Ohio and Senator Husted, where can folks find you out there?
JohnHustedForSenate.com.
All right, that's Ohio Senator, the newest Senator, John Husted. He is from Ohio. He's on the ballot this November. He was in the chamber last night with President Trump. Thanks for coming by the show.
Great to be with you.
We're going to take a break, but first, a quick word from our friends at Relief Factor. You know, we've been collecting testimonials from customers around the country. This one comes in from Tom in Texas, 85-year-old Tom, 85 years old. Pain had finally caught up with Tom. He was not able to ride his bike. He was not able to fly small aircraft as a flight instructor. That's what he liked to do. So he says, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try Relief Factor. Now, lower back pain gone, hip pain virtually gone. He even had long-standing trigger finger issues. That is starting to improve. 85 years old, Tom in Texas. We're hearing from people like Tom every single day here at the show, and they're all saying the same thing. Relief Factor made a difference in their life. If pain is holding you back, try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start. See how it works for you. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit relieffactor.com. We're having a special edition of the Scott Jennings Show reacting to the President's State of the Union. 8 members of the U.S. Senate are here. Coming up next, the other senator from Ohio comes by, Bernie Moreno. Don't miss it, right here on Salem. Stay with us.
Saving Western civilization, one busted leftist narrative at a time. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
And it's a special edition of Common Sense for the American People. Scott Jennings here in Washington. We're talking to several members of the U.S. Senate today in reaction to the President's State of the Union. And our next guest is here, been on the show a few times, Senator Bernie Moreno from the great state of Ohio is with us. Before we talk about the State of the Union, Senator Moreno, it sounds like Senator Thune, the Republican leader, is having a press conference right now, and it sounds like there may be a little bit of an update on the Save America Act and what will happen in the Senate. Care to talk about that?
Yeah, we're going to put that on the floor of the United States Senate because, Scott, what the American people need to hear firsthand directly is Democrats saying you shouldn't have to one time prove that you're an American citizen to register to vote. And when you go to vote, you shouldn't have to prove who you are. 2 outrageous things. I think if you were in a regular coffee shop somewhere in Chillicothe, Ohio, or somewhere in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, and you ask somebody there, hey, should you have to prove you're a citizen to register? And should you have to show your ID? They'd say, of course. This is common sense. Let the Democrats make the case that it's not.
And still to come on this conversation, there'll have to be some internal conversations among the Republicans about how to possibly change the filibuster rules in the Senate to stop the Democrats from blocking it, but those conversations are still to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're going to put some common sense guardrails in place that doesn't change the tradition of the Senate. We're still the most deliberative body on earth that, quite frankly, today doesn't really debate. So we're going to actually try to make it much more of a deliberative body where you see your elected leaders debating each other real ideas. I did that earlier today. I debated Ron Wyden on a very simple bill. It said that if you're on welfare, you shouldn't be able to send money overseas. Ron Wyden said that's racist, to which I reminded him I'm an immigrant, and I find it racist that he thinks that immigrants come here to be on social welfare programs.
All right, Senator Moreno, you're very involved here at the National Republican Senatorial Committee. You're very acquainted with the electoral landscape for the fall. A couple things. Number one, did the president give the Republicans the message to run on for this November? And maybe run through a couple of the key races that the Republican Party really needs to win this November to hold the Senate majority.
He absolutely did. I mean, he hit a home run. You hate to compare it to other speeches, but in my opinion, it's the best State of the Union speech he's ever given. I think he struck the perfect tone of just truly loving America. Having Americans realize, you know what, at the end of the day, this is an amazing, amazing country. Eric Slover, I mean, what an American hero.
Incredible.
It also highlighted, too, the sadness and despair and just total lack of joy from the Democrats. I mean, it's just two very sad people just heckling the President of the United States.
Oh, when he couldn't get the Democrats to stand up to affirm that their allegiance is to American citizens, and then he has Omar and Tlaib screaming at him. I mean, from a Republican or a conservative perspective, Trump, you couldn't have asked for a better split screen than that, just as a messaging device coming out of the speech.
No question at all. And the stories are great. He told the stories perfectly. And at the end of the day, we now understand what the messaging is going to be going into the midterms, which is we saved this country. This country is going to go down off the cliff. President Trump saved it. We're working on safety, security, and prosperity. If you look at the races, let's start with Maine. Susan Collins is a very effective senator. By the way, your listeners would be surprised to know that she actually votes with Republicans more than your senator in Kentucky, Rand Paul, and she's actually with us quite a bit. But she represents Maine. Now, she's up against two formidable candidates, a Nazi-loving lunatic and a trans-loving, very aged person who Mother Nature will keep to one term if she were to win.
They got to pick between the trans cult or the Nazi cult in the Maine Democratic primary. It's quite a choice they have up there.
Versus a super serious, very effective, very knowledgeable senator. So Susan Collins, I feel good about. In North Carolina, we have an amazing candidate, Michael Whatley. He's up against Roy Cooper. No, look, at the end of the day, people saw the video. That Ukrainian girl who came to America to seek refuge was killed because of Roy Cooper's policies. He let that lunatic out on the streets. He'll do more of that. Michael Whatley would never make that happen.
That race is going to turn on public safety. I think that Charlotte story outraged people in North Carolina. I mean, it outraged people across the country, but Roy Cooper as governor let a bunch of dangerous people out on the streets.
Absolutely. Then we turn our attention to Michigan, the state just north of us that we beat in football. So in Michigan, you got Mike Rogers, proven candidate, great guy, versus just completely deranged three Democrats. Look, if you like Ilhan Omar, you're going to love the people running against Mike Rogers. So we're going to flip that state. The auto industry's never been in a better position it is right now. Mike Rogers all the way.
It's an interesting map. Republicans have 53, and to hold the majority and maybe pick up one or two out there, we'll need resources, fundraising going well here.
Absolutely. Well, it can always do better. It's just like the line in It's a Wonderful Life. Money comes in handy down here, Bob. So, look, if you care about this country, you care about expanding the Senate majority, do whatever you can to help senators. In my case, teammarino.org. You can go on there, help. That money goes to the NRSC.
That's Bernie Marino of Ohio. I'm Scott Jennings. You're on Salem. Stay with us. Dan Sullivan is next.
Ready for more common sense? Here's CNN's senior political commentator, New York Times best-selling author, and America's favorite political pundit, Scott Jennings.
It is Wednesday, February 25th. Common sense for the American people. I want to thank my friends up in Saginaw, Michigan for our broadcast hospitality last night. I was on CNN with my colleague Van Jones. We met with 10 voters, watched the State of the Union, and had a really nice time in Saginaw. We were at the Old Town Brewery, and it was a really great venue. And I think Van and I are going to get out on the road and meet with voters and do a little bit more out in Middle America, which I think would be good for our political coverage. But it was a really insightful conversation with those voters. And so for all the voters who came out and the folks at Old Town Brewery, we're grateful for your hospitality in Michigan. Now, I got up super early this morning, Senator, to fly back to Washington to talk to you and your colleagues, because I wanted to hear how Republicans in the U.S. Senate are reacting to the president's State of the Union. You are in the chamber. Senator Dan Sullivan is from Alaska. And I'm going to start here. Give me an idea. What was the vibe in the room? What were a couple of things that jumped out to you about the president's performance?
Well, look, the vibe was great, Scott. And by the way, we got to get you and Van Jones up to Alaska. Right?
We would do it.
You would have a great time up there.
Yeah.
The vibe was great, but I would say most importantly, what I loved about the speech was the optimism and the discussion of really it's all about the American comeback. The president's first line was "America is back," right? And then he reminded us what we're back from. High prices of the Biden administration, open borders, 11 million illegals, crime that was rampant, attacking American energy, a weak military that couldn't even recruit enough soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to stay strong. All that's in the rearview mirror. It was about optimism. It was about the American comeback. And here's the other thing I loved about it. It wasn't just about our nation coming back. It was about the stories of individual heroes coming back, right? And overcoming adversity and how they had triumphed. And it was the hockey team, 2 Medal of Honor recipients in one night. It was great. I loved it.
Well, there was some optimism in the room, mostly from the Republicans. I didn't detect a lot of optimism from the Democrats. In fact, I saw a lot of stone faces. I saw them sitting in their seats, refusing to stand up for, frankly, very easy issues. They wouldn't stand. You know, the president asked the Democrats, could you just stand up and affirm that your highest duty is to protect American citizens?
Yep.
They wouldn't stand up for that. They had the mother of Irina Zarutska there. They wouldn't stand up for that. It was really kind of shocking to me. But I think the American people saw a bright line contrast between two parties, one that frankly loves America and one that's pretty sour on America.
Well, look, your point on when they stayed seated, when the president said the fundamental duty of the government is not, he said this, protect American citizens, not illegal immigrants.
Yes.
And they sat the whole time. We were up clapping, but to be honest, I was shocked because unless you're kind of such a far left crazy that you can't think right, that's a pretty easy question as a senator or congressman, regardless of party, to stand up and be counted for, and they wouldn't do it.
Let's zoom in on an issue the president spent some time on last night, and it is huge, of course, in Alaska, and that's the issue of our national energy policy. Let's hear from the president in cut number 10.
American natural gas production is at an all-time high because I kept my promise to drill, baby, drill.
President talked a lot about energy, talked about unleashing fossil fuels in the United States of America. And, you know, we've seen gas prices come down. We've seen production go up. Talk to us about how this issue is playing out in Alaska with Trump as the president.
Oh, it's huge. And the contrasts between Biden and Trump on this are night and day. I always have this chart.
Yep.
I don't like showing it around anymore because it's the past, but this was the 70 executive orders, 7-0, that Biden issued in 4 years against my state, solely against Alaska. We call it the last frontier lockup. It was all about killing Alaska oil and gas and mining and access to our federal lands. I love ripping this up, because it's a thing of the past. And by the way, on day one, the president issued this.
Yep.
An executive order called Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential. It is all about undoing what Biden did to hurt us. And this was, again, day one from the president on Alaska. My state's the only state in the country that's got its own executive order. But here's the thing on this, Scott. Of course, this hurt my constituents. Hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs killed by the Biden administration. But if you're shutting down Alaska, the state with the most resources of any state in the country, not just oil and gas, but critical minerals that we need to compete with China, you're hurting America. This hurts the whole country when you're taking off the table one of the great resource development states of of the United States. And so when the president says drill, baby, drill, he has been so focused on unleashing Alaska's energy. We're having a renaissance on the North Slope in terms of our oil production. We're very close to getting this very big LNG project off the ground that we've been focused on for years. And it's not just this executive order. In the Working Families Tax Cuts Act that the president talked about a lot last night, the budget reconciliation bill, that has a number of provisions focused exclusively on Alaska that mandates lease sales on our federal land. So that bill also unleashes Alaska, and it's great for my state.
Yeah, you represent Alaska. You're on the ballot this year. And let me just ask you, just hearing you describe how Alaska was specifically treated by Biden.
Oh, yeah.
And hearing how it's been specifically treated by Trump. Do you see your race this year sort of as a referendum on two visions? One party that's going to lock down Alaska, one party that's going to unleash resources.
100%. That's what I talk about. It's a great point. I always say elections are about three things. Your record, and I have a strong record, right? I'm one of the top producers every year in the Senate in terms of getting bills over the goal line. That Working Families Tax Cut Act has so much good stuff in it for Alaska. In the vision, right? Republicans, the president, John Thune, all my colleagues, they want to unleash my state. This is just what the president said on day one. The Democrats, and it's not just Biden, Schumer is the most anti-Alaska member of Congress probably in the history of the country. We are looking into his votes, hundreds and hundreds of votes in actions directly against Alaska's interests. So the vision of Republicans and the Democrats in D.C. on my state, and it relates to the whole country, is very, very different. And then, of course, there's resources. Dems are very good about raising money. We know that. But we have the people. We have the ideas, and that's what we're going to run on. That contrasts my record, and with that, we're going to win.
Yeah, your race is interesting. I want to get into a couple of issues. One, you have to run in the ranked choice vote system, which, by the way, is an abomination.
It is.
But you have to run under this. Talk to us about what it's like to run a race for the U.S. Senate with ranked choice voting laying out there.
Well, look, ranked choice voting got hoisted on the state of Alaska. This happens a lot by outside far-left interest groups. They see us as a place to spend their unlimited money, right? This is George Soros and all the far-left groups. And they hoisted this on the state. They spent millions and millions of dollars on a statewide referendum to get it on the ballot, and it's very confusing. It's Alaskans don't like it. It's dropped voter turnout significantly, but it's a jungle primary. It's the top 4 vote getters, and then you go to a general election, and you rank the different board members on the ballot, and the guy who gets the least amount of votes, his voters kind of get to vote again on the remaining 3. It is very confusing. It was meant to elect Democrats in my state. I've never had to run under it yet. This is the first time I'll run under it. But again, we will run on a record and a vision, and it's the vision the people of my state want. By the way, it's the vision Americans want.
That's Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska. Let's talk about your record a little bit and how you're presenting it to the people of Alaska. Here's one of the latest advertisements in the campaign, cut number 14.
Dan Sullivan promised to put Alaska first. He delivered. Alongside President Trump, Sullivan unlocked nearly 30 million acres across Alaska and $17 billion in new energy revenue. He delivered the largest Coast Guard investment in history, upgraded Alaska's aviation safety, secured $1.36 billion for Alaska's rural health care and hospitals, and not $1 was cut from Alaskans' Medicaid benefits. Sullivan delivered military pay raises, $284 million in new military construction, and over $25 billion for President Trump's Golden Dome initiative, protecting Alaskans. Dan Sullivan's Alaska comeback is just getting started. Tell Dan Sullivan thank you for putting Alaska first.
There's the argument about what you're talking to the people of Alaska. And this is a state with a long tradition of valuing leaders in Washington who can deliver directly for the people of Alaska.
Correct. And look, again, that's what we're going to run on. My opponent had 2 terms in, my Democrat opponent, 2 terms in the House and never got 1 bill passed, right? That's not my record, right? That ad, I appreciate that ad because it lays out the myriad of issues that we have focused on. Energy, of course, national security, healthcare. And here's the other thing, and trust me, I'm going to let people know I had my big annual speech to our Alaska legislature last week. The Democrats in the Senate, led by Schumer, opposed every single one of those good provisions for Alaska, for our Coast Guard, for our troops, of course, for energy. They love shutting us down. So again, this is a very different vision of where you want to take the state, certainly for me. But I think this race is going to play into a national narrative of these are the things we want to get done for America. Rebuilding our military, unleashing American energy, having the largest investment in rural health care in American history. The one I love, I chair the Coast Guard subcommittee.
Yep.
And we in the Working Families Tax Cuts Act got the biggest investment in the Coast Guard in American history by far, $25 billion to rebuild our Coast Guard. A lot of that's coming to Alaska. We have the biggest Coast Guard stations in the country. We have more coastline for the Coast Guard to protect than the rest of the lower 48 combined. So these issues really matter to my constituents.
We've got about 30 seconds left here. Coast Guard and DHS in the news right now. The Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security. Do you think we're going to see them relent on this anytime soon? It does impact your state.
I certainly hope so, because a lot of people are missing the big issue here. The Democrats are now back in their mode of defund ICE, which to me makes absolutely zero sense. They're always coming after our heroic law enforcement. But this Homeland Security shutdown doesn't touch ICE even that much. ICE has a lot of money to continue from the budget reconciliation bill, the Working Families Tax Cuts Act. This primarily shuts down the Coast Guard and FEMA. And again, in my state...
And at a time when we're having terrible weather.
Terrible weather, and we always need the Coast Guard. And so, look, the fact that they're doing that again is a real disappointment. Led by Schumer, once again, another Schumer shutdown.
Anti-Alaska Schumer. You heard it from Senator Dan Sullivan. He's on the ballot in Alaska this year. We'll take a break. Wrap up the show with Pete Ricketts from Nebraska. It's common sense for the American people. Scott's on Salem. Stay with us.
The very definition of never back down. Here's Scott Jennings.
Rounding out the show here on a special edition of Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings here in Washington, and this is our 8th of 8 United States senators coming by to react to the President's State of the Union last night. This is Senator Pete Ricketts of the great state of Nebraska. Senator, glad to have you here in the studio. I know an issue that you care about deeply is this issue of rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. The president went right at the fraud that's being uncovered in Minnesota last night. Let's hear from him, and I want to get your reaction. President Trump on fraud, cut 11.
But when it comes to the corruption that is plundering, it's plundering America. There's been no more stunning example than Minnesota, where members of the Somali community have pillaged an estimated $19 billion from the American taxpayer. We have all the information. And in actuality, the number is much higher.
So we have billions that's already been uncovered in fraud in Minnesota. We know it's in California. It's a number of states. The president, Senator Ricketts, announced that Vice President Vance is going to run a national task force on this. Where are you on this topic, and what do we need to know?
Yeah, I think it's really great that the president is highlighting this on a couple of things. First of all, let's just put it in perspective of scale. We did a rescissions bill led by my colleague Eric Schmidt from Missouri, and we were able to pull $9 billion out. And some of the early numbers we had were $9 billion in fraud. The president said $19 billion. So think about all the work that we had to do to get that $9 billion out, just gone because of $9 billion of fraud or $19 billion of fraud or whatever it is. And part of this is the Democrats are actively opposing our efforts to rein in this waste, fraud, abuse. When we did the reconciliation bill last year, we had a lot of things that would actually help get at the fraud, say in Medicaid, and the Democrats would block those things and say, no, we're not going to let you do these things because they don't want to actually stop the fraud that's going on there. So that's part of what the vice president's going to be up against, is that you've got an active Democrat machine that is pushing back against our efforts here. And when I was governor, this is one of the things that we really did to try and run government better, is to put things in place to measure what we're doing, be able to hold people accountable for results, put in measurements, that sort of thing. In fact, we reduced the growth of spending from 6.5% down to about 2.8%, so we cut it by more than half. And by doing that, we were able to really fund our tax relief,
Right.
fund our roads. I mean, all the things that we want to do, to the investments we want to make, and giving people back their money because we were doing those things. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. And of course, we had the Doge effort with Elon Musk. He had covered a lot, or just highlighted a lot of this stuff that was going on. I think there's huge opportunity in the federal government to be able to do more.
I know you're close to Vice President Vance, and this is a big job. I mean, the idea of trying to get your arms around the fraud we know about, plus all the things we don't know about. I'm sure there's something going on in virtually every state, particularly blue states out there. What's your advice to him? Where to start? How to sort of get your arms around this problem and really bring it out into the light for the American people?
Well, I think there's a couple of things they ought to do. First of all, start with us in the U.S. Senate. We've got the Doge Caucus. Joni Ernst is leading that caucus, but I'm a member of that caucus. She's putting together already a package of anti-fraud legislation that we want to push. Maybe we can get that done in a reconciliation package, so we wouldn't necessarily need Democrat votes to get that done. So that's one opportunity. I would say also then, look, open up a whistleblower line, right? Have people in the federal government start telling you about where they see the fraud. Start looking at some of these independent journalists, like Uncover the Ones, the fraud in Minnesota.
Right.
And start, the part of the problem with the federal government is that it's just so used to doing things the way it's used to doing things. You got to get outside that mode, because a lot of the people just won't even see it for what's happening in front of them, won't even think about it. You got to get new people looking at this, like Elon Musk did when he was looking at it, to be able to start saying, oh, hey, it doesn't make any sense for us to send a check out the door and not know who asked for the money and not know what a budget is supposed to hit against. I mean, that's just the kind of stuff that's been going on for years, but nobody said, that's just a dumb thing to do. Why are we doing that?
Senator Pete Ricketts is from Nebraska. We've got about 30 seconds. You're on the ballot this year. You're running against a man named Osborne who tells people he's an independent. He's really a radical leftist, posing as an independent. Give us 20 seconds on this race. Why should people in Nebraska reject Osborne?
Well, Dan's a fake independent because he's getting all his money and all his positions are the Democrats. So when he ran against Deb Fischer in 2024, the Democrats spent $38 million on him. And then he pretended like he didn't know who Chuck Schumer was, even though Chuck Schumer gave him nearly $4 million of that money.
He's really trying to pull the wool over the eyes of these voters.
Exactly.
But you're not going to let him get away with it.
Not at all.
No.
He's got the same. He wants to raise taxes. He wants boys to play girl sports, all that.
Senator Pete Ricketts of Nebraska. We're done here in Washington. Thanks to the 8 U.S. senators that came by. And thanks again to the folks in Saginaw, Michigan for having Van and me up last night. That's our State of the Union coverage. More tomorrow. Scott's out here on Salem. Thanks for listening.